What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be breaking down the Detroit Lions defense and trying to figure out what the problem is from last season and how the Lions can fix it. We're not just going to be talking about a problem, we're going to be talking about solutions, because we want solutions around here. Okay, that kind of hurt. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. I have no idea what that... Anyways, we're going to be looking for solutions to this Lions defense, from being terrible last season to potentially being what we were hoping it would be in 2019, okay? So, quick summary, in 2018, the Lions finished ranked 10th defensively, like, overall, and everybody was hyped. I mean, I was hyped. You know, I was hyped. I was like, dang, this defense is going to be unstoppable if we had some pieces, and we did. And with the money we spent, I thought there was no way this defense could not be top 5. Instead, it was basically last in the league, okay? It was last in a lot of stats, not all of them, but in a lot of them. We were awful, and there's a lot of reasons, and obviously I don't think the reason is obvious, because if it was, everybody would be talking about it. It's not an obvious reason. We don't exactly know what to point to. There's multiple problems, and I think there's different ways to look at it, so I came up with a few ways I would look at it, found some numbers to back up what I was saying, at least try to make some sense, because it is really confusing when you go through it. You can't really just pick out something and say, well, that's the problem, because then when you look at the numbers, you're like, oh, that's not the problem. That's how it was for me. I was like looking at it. I was like, maybe that what I was thinking isn't actually the problem, because numbers are really weird, and you can just keep diving into stuff and keep learning more, but it's pretty crazy so far, and I may even do a part 2 to this if I learn more information and see new things that kind of, or maybe new comments that are like, oh, wow, that's a good thing. I should check that out. So basically what I did is I broke it into 3 parts: linebackers, defensive line, and secondary. Now, last season, the Lions, like I said, ranked 10th overall defensively, and in 2018 against the rush, they ranked at number 10, which is obviously good. Top 10 against the rush. Well, last season they ranked 23rd, so automatically there is a huge decrease. Now, it actually wasn't bad because it was only by 5 yards. So you hear it, and you also have to look at what it was, though, because some years are different. Some years, teams play differently, so what your rank doesn't necessarily matter. It was only a 5-yard difference, so it wasn't a huge difference. I mean, if you look at the rankings, it was, but overall by numbers, it wasn't a huge difference, so that's something that you have to keep in mind. Now, one thing that you also have to keep in mind is that in this past season, we ranked last against the pass in yards allowed per game, number 8. You ranked number 8 against the pass. So last from last, basically last in the league, to number 8 against yards allowed. So it's a huge difference, and 8th is about a 60-yard difference as I was looking at it, in passing yards allowed. So it's a big difference. Not necessarily running. I don't think rushing was a huge. 5 yards. Come on, man. I mean, it's 5 yards. You could have like one big run that makes the whole difference for the season of 5 yards. So I'm not really too focused on that. It's really the passing which was the problem in my eyes. The passing defense was a problem, and it was obvious. We struggled a lot against the pass, and I think a lot of things did cover it up early in the season. The fact that we were able to force some turnovers on fumbles, and that covers up a lot of problems, when you're giving up a lot of passing yards. But however, you knocked a couple balls loose, and you're like, oh, snap, it's like I forgot the whole drive even happened, and all of a sudden you forget about the fact that they marched it on the field. You just stripped it out of their hands one time and it gave you the ball right back. However, we still weren't good against the pass really all year, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, we were pretty bad against the pass. I mean, we were awful against the pass. Let me just say it like that. So that is the main thing I wanted to figure out. What is the problem? Because I really don't want to focus on offense. I think offense is easy. I mean, yes, there are some things that we look at, like offensive line, how can we make it better, and I could do a video on that. But I really want to focus on defense and take more time with that, because offensively with Stafford, we were really good. We were averaging about 25.5 points, I think it was, until Stafford went down. I'm pretty sure halfway mark we were averaging 25.5 points per game, which is really good. That's a really good stat. I think we were giving up 26 points per game this season, so you could see that that's the problem. But we were still good. We were really good offensively with Stafford, so I'm not even going to really look at that. But defensively, we had problems all season, and a lot of people want to point to different things, and it's easy to. Specifically, pass rush is one of the big things. Injuries are another big thing. Secondary, how the players are playing. So I decided to dive into it a little bit, look at some numbers, and really try to figure it out. So the first thing that I found as I was looking at the defensive line was obviously injuries were a big factor. And the thing with injuries, it wasn't necessarily a ton of stars that we were missing. For me, it was more the depth. It wasn't the stars that that were hurt that were really holding us back. No, it was actually the depth, because when you look at where the injuries were really coming from, they were coming from depth players that usually could give us about 1 to 2 sacks a season. This year, we weren't getting that because all of these guys were injured. I mean, you can look across the board. Most of our guys on defensive line at one point were hurt on IR, something like that. Now, I will point this out. IR-wise, we did only have, I believe it was 21. If I can count right, there was like 21 people on IR. Teams like San Francisco had 19. So, I mean, you can see it's not like we are a crazy differential, unless the side I was looking at was completely off. But it does, matter when you're looking at a specific position, and that one specific position was basically overloaded with injuries. Defensive line had a lot of depth injuries. Darius Kilgo was on IR. Austin Bryant, Deshaun Hand, Christian Jones. I mean, you can go on and on. Trey Lamar, who didn't play much. He wasn't on defensive line. He was a linebacker. But still, I mean, you see injuries across the board. And depth-wise, it really hurt us because we weren't able to get those guys to, give rest to our other players, get in there, mix in, make some big plays happen. But the two main guys for us this season, Trey Flowers and Devon Kennard, did what they were supposed to do and made up for a lot of our problems. I mean, when you compare it, look at 2018 to 2019. If you compare some of the numbers real quick, which I will do right here. So when I say the Lions were bad against the pass, I mean they were bad against the pass. 2018, they gave up about 3,500 yards passing. And 3,600 yards, excuse me. In 2019, we gave up about 4,500 yards passing, a 900-yard difference. That's huge. Also, this is a big one for me, interceptions, okay? I think a lot of people, at least me specifically, I thought the interception margin would be completely different. It was the same. We had 7 interceptions both seasons. So that didn't have any effect at all. We had the same amount of interceptions. Now, we gave up 225 yards per game in 2018 and 2019. We gave up 284. So like I said, it's like a 50-yard difference. Sacks were huge for me. So sacks is where I like to start off because for me, I look at defense like this, trenches out. If you're not going to get pressure, someone's going to get open. And when you look at the numbers, 43 sacks in 2018, 28 sacks in 2019. I believe the Kansas City Chiefs have about 43 sacks in 2019. So you can see sacks are super important. We know getting pressure is super important, and we weren't getting it. Now, I know some people want to look at, okay, well, we didn't blitz, okay? And I will give you that. We did not blitz a lot this season, but that's also not very different from 2018 because if you look at it, how much we blitzed, we didn't blitz much in 2018 either. We were nearly last in the league in blitzing once again. So it's not like we blitzed either year. And it's fine because some teams do really well blitzing. The Baltimore Ravens, I believe they were first in blitzing, and obviously they have a great defense. But then there's other teams that blitz a lot, and it doesn't work. It's just, you can do either way. You just have to make sure you have the personnel and you're doing it the right way. You can do either one, but you have to do it the right way. In 2018, it definitely worked out a lot better, and I think I found a few reasons why. So in 2018 compared to 2019, looking at some of our sack leaders, in 2018, Romeo Okwara was huge. He was a breakout player, and I thought he was going to be maybe not as good, but similar in 2018. He was basically non-existent in 2019, and I was trying to figure out what happened. It wasn't that he was injured tons of games, okay? He played basically the same amount of games. He just didn't get much starting time. He didn't get as much starting time. He played about 50% of the snaps. Same time, he just didn't have much production. And I know not having production is huge. That's not all about playing time. He just didn't make plays. Last season, 2018, he had 7.5 sacks. This season, he had like 1 or 1.5 or something. It was super, super low. But that was pretty much made up for by the fact that we brought in a guy named Trey Flowers this offseason. We brought in Trey Flowers, and he had 7 sacks. So that pretty much just cancels that out. Devon Kennard, 2018, 7 sacks. 2019, 7 sacks. Kennard needs to stick around. We need to give that guy a big contract. I'm just saying, okay? It's kind of obvious. But now, here's where things get tricky. In 2018, Jared Davis had 6 sacks. In 2019, he had 2. One of the reasons are he played in 11 games compared to last season where he played in 16. I believe he played in all 16 last year. And last year was his best season. Last year, he had 100 tackles, 6 sacks. This season, 63 tackles, 2 sacks. Just a complete decrease. Now, obviously, playing in 5 more games could potentially make up for that. So, again, injuries are going to come into play there. And also just not having as much production. Because, he's not really on pace. Even with 5 more games, he wouldn't have probably been on pace to have 100 tackles like he did the year before. Ziggy Ansah, who we don't have any longer in 2019, which I understand because injuries were a big problem there. So we got rid of the injury guy, then we just had more injuries. He had 4 sacks, and at our side, after the 2 guys that had 7, there's just no one else up there. Okay, there's no one else up there. Eli Harold had 4 sacks, 3.5 sacks for Snacks Harrison, 3 sacks for Deshaun Hand. Jelani Tavai had 2, Christian Jones had 2, and yeah. That's pretty much where we were. We were at guys who had 2 guys at 7 sacks, and it was just a complete drop-off. So we didn't have the same depth guys, and that's when I go back to the beginning. The depth is where the injuries hurt us. Because you notice I didn't say Mike Daniels. Mike Daniels came in on I think it was a 1-year, $9 million contract. He got hurt. He didn't play much of the season at all. Played in like 3 games. So he's not even an impact, and we thought he could be a huge impact for us. Didn't have much of an impact at all. So you can see the depth injuries is what really, really hurt us because across the board, linebackers were hurt. Defensive lineman depth injuries were hurt. Some of them, our fault. We go get a guy, Austin Bryant, he gets hurt. Are we surprised? No, because we kind of knew that was going to happen. Other positions, it happens. It's football. You get injured. But we had a lot of injuries across the linebacker and defensive line position. So that's the first thing that I think we need to address this offseason. Definitely go get another superstar. I think if you add a third superstar, you're going to be opening up a lot of things because one guy from 2018, 2019 also took a dip. Now, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, this isn't a huge dip. But then I continued to look, it's a huge dip. So I was really looking at the defensive tackle because I look at this and I always think to myself, okay, well, defensive ends are fine. You got Kennard, you got Flowers. We just need to get pressure up the middle. So I was like, okay, well, is that true? Let me find out if that's a true statement because me just saying that means nothing. I need to figure out if the production is literally dropped from 2008 to 2019 because we know 2018 we were a better defense. So is it really defensive tackle position? And I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it's definitely some defensive tackle position. The main guy is Snacks Harrison. Now, A'Shawn Robinson didn't really have an impact in 2018 or 2019 at all. And that's when I say, he doesn't really do that much for us. He hasn't. He really hasn't. 2018, 7 games started. 1 sack, 49 tackles. 2019, 9 games started. 1.5 sacks, 40 tackles. But Snacks Harrison is where the real drop happens. So Snacks, who went from playing 16 games 2018 to playing 15. So it's only a 1-game difference. Let's not act like he was out the whole year. He still played games. He played basically the same amount of games. So it wasn't injuries for Snacks. It was just production. I mean, let's look at this. 2018, 3.5 sacks. 3.5 sacks 2018. In 2019, he only had 2 sacks. So that's a 1.5 sack difference. Not huge. But this is where it gets interesting. Again, only a 1-game difference. 2018, 81 total tackles. In 2019, 49. That's a 32 tackle difference in 1 game. I'm telling you what, I'm not a defensive tackle. I've never played defensive tackle, but I don't think he would have racked up 32 tackles in 1 game. So you can see the tackles were completely dropped off. And I think that's what people look at and say, yeah, he's just not the same run stopper. And he knew that. He knew by the season. He's like, man, if I can't be the same player, I just don't want to do it anymore. We know that. He's aging. That's the first guy that I think we need to find a replacement for. I don't think he's going to play football next year. I really do think he's going to retire. Now, he may return with someone else, maybe return with us. I think he's going to retire. I really do. So that's the first thing. That's production. That's just a complete drop-off. Not injuries. That's just production. That's just completely falling off. A'Shawn Robinson hasn't had production both of the years he was here. 2008, 2019, there just hasn't been anything. Okay, there's no production there. That's a guy that we need to either replace. Well, basically, replace. Let's make it simple. You can bring him back if you want some $1 million. Otherwise, you replace him because he's going to be a free agent. You don't give him a nice contract. You replace him because these aren't numbers that are okay. You got Snacks who's been injured, but who's playing games. But you got A'Shawn who's dealing with more injuries, younger, and at the same time, he's just not putting up the same numbers. He's not putting up numbers at all. He's not really contributing at the defensive tackle position. So the defensive tackle position is huge for us. Now, there's a couple ways to go about this defensive tackle-wise, and I think on the first page, I went over Pro Football Focus numbers. Yes, I did. Okay, so let's actually hop back to this. So I went over some Pro Football Focus numbers because I do like to look at how they grade them, and it definitely helps, I think, look at some things. Flowers was obviously huge. He had an 83 grade, so I just want to tell you some of the good ones. Devon Kennard was a 69 grade. But then let's look at some of the other players, where they graded at. Snacks Harrison, 63. A'Shawn Robinson, 56. When I say that he was not impactful, 56 was his Pro Football Focus grade. That's lower than A'Shawn's. Than Snacks. Julian Okwara, 62. Okay, I always say Julian. Romeo. You're telling me A'Shawn had a lower production rate than Romeo Okwara? And Quora was a complete letdown this season. So that's where I see problems. Okay, like I said, Trey Flowers is at 83. Kennard's only a 69, but he did have 7 sacks. So you know what? You do you. I'm not even gonna worry about it. Still higher grades than everyone else. So the main problem that I see here when I look at this is Mike Daniels actually had a 70 grade. So put that in perspective to some of the other guys. Mike Daniels barely played. He had a 70 grade. So the problem here I see is defensive tackle. We need defensive tackle help, and it's pretty obvious. We need defensive tackle help. We don't have a superstar defensive tackle, and we don't have good depth there because injuries took place. Darius Kilgo got hurt. We saw Kevin Strong injuries. We saw Deshaun Hand have injuries. We saw these guys have injuries. Now, obviously, you're not expecting that coming into the season. Say, I hope all these guys are going to have injuries. Then what? You think you have that depth, but I think we need a superstar defensive tackle, and it's kind of obvious. I think it's pretty obvious, okay? Kennard, Flowers, they're holding it down, but the defensive tackle position is disgusting. Let's just say it's just disgusting, okay? And it was fine last year because when Snacks Harrison came in, he was putting up numbers. Like, he was balling. This year, he wasn't. And you could tell A'Shawn wasn't ready to step up to the plate. And overall, we had problems with depth at the defensive tackle position, and we just weren't able to figure it out. So there's a couple of names. Obviously, Chris Jones. I'm thinking Chris Jones is, if there's that one big name free agent I want to get, it's Chris Jones. Maybe not the most popular, he's not Derrick Henry. He's a defensive tackle, but he puts up numbers, and he's probably the best defensive tackle, and we have the money to pay him, so let's do it if you're going to win. The fact that we don't blitz a lot, I'm going to say this multiple times, is okay. Then you have to build your team around the fact that you're not going to blitz a lot. Unless you're knowing you're not blitzing because you don't have edge rushers, then otherwise you have to fill out those positions that you don't need to blitz for. You don't need to blitz your defensive tackle. He's coming. Okay, your defensive tackle's coming. So get a great defensive tackle. Stack the D-line. For me, that's where it starts defensively. It's trenches, man. It is trenches. And Chris Jones is huge. Also, a guy that everybody likes in the draft, a lot of people like, Derek Brown. Now this is college. Keep that in mind. He had a 90.4 grade. It's college, but 90.4 Pro Football Focus grade. It was 11th out of Pro Football Focus. That's insane. He was really good. So he could potentially fit with a trade back as well. So I think defensive tackle is super important. So then I decided to look at secondary because, is that the main problem? Is it just that we're not getting pressure? Or is the secondary let down? Because I know some people think it's pressure. Other people think it's the fact that our secondary is just really bad. And, I thought the best way to compare it is from last season. Let's compare it to last season. Because last season, we ranked 10th. This season, we ranked last. So what is the difference? How did we go from that to that? Let's see. Let's see what our team different was. So overall, you're going to see a lot of cool things here. First off, Nevin Lawson. You're probably thinking, here comes Nevin Lawson. Yeah, actually, he wasn't awful. But I'm going to put him with Justin Coleman. Doesn't really matter where you pair these guys. Just think about it as a whole. Nevin Lawson gave up 59% completion percentage with the Lions. This is in 2018. These are 2018 versus 2019. These are all 2018 players. And he gave up 103 passer rating. Justin Coleman, he gave up 63% completion, 103 passer rating. It's pretty much the same thing, 4% difference. Okay, you can call it, you can actually give the point to Nevin Lawson if you wanted to. That's how crazy things are. That's how crazy. Hopefully that's a 3 because my numbers aren't super good. But I believe that's 3. Next up, Tease Tabor. Now, 2018 Tease Tabor gave up 63% completions, but the problem was his rating. He gave up 143 passer rating. Yeah, that's a big problem. Compare that to our outside cornerback, who was Rashawn Melvin. He gave up 63% as well, and he only gave up 104 rating. So give the point to Rashawn Melvin. Next up, Darius Slay. Compare him to himself because Darius Slay played in both seasons. Compare Darius Slay 2018-2019. Well, 2018, he was obviously unstoppable. He only gave up 46% completion percentage and a 72 passer rating. 1956% completion and 81% pass rating. So yes, give that point to 18 Slay, but these are still good numbers. I mean, you could throw out 18 Slay and just look at this. He's giving up an 81 pass rating, not bad, and only 56% completion. That's good. I mean, that's really good to know you're going against the best wide receiver game in and game out. Sometimes he was thrown in the slot. That's good. That's really good. So I'm not even mad about that. So the corners overall is very similar. If you add them all together, they're very similar. So it's not corners. So what is it? Oh, is it safeties? Is it the safeties? Okay, well, let's compare those. Glover Quinn. Yes, a lot of people think Glover Quinn is the problem. Once he left, that hurt us a lot. And I think it did better in leadership-wise, but numbers-wise, maybe not as much. Glover Quinn gave up 67% completion and a 121 rating. That's not good. 121 rating. He didn't come up with an interception, and he played in 16 games. Compare that to Tracy Walker, who is our starting safety. He gave up 68% completion, which is basically, 65% completion, so even better. And he only gave up 117 passer rating. Very similar, you could call it a tie, but you're basically tying with Glover Quinn. So it's not Glover Quinn. Okay, well, what about Will Harris? Maybe he's the problem. Okay, well, Will Harris gave up 56% completion percentage on 125 rating. The rating wasn't good, but he only gave up 56%. Now, compare that to Quandre Diggs, who gave up 63.5% with the Lions in 2018 and an 86.5 pass rating. And in 2019, he gave up 45% with a 62 pass rating. So what I gather out of this is we missed Quandre Diggs. But Quandre Diggs was balling. Let me just throw that out there. I mean, come on, man. Look at this. 62 passer rating? I don't know. I don't know. Those are really good numbers. But aside from that point, otherwise, it's very similar across the board. It's not cornerbacks as much. Obviously, our pressure wasn't as much there, so their numbers should be worse. 2019 numbers should be a lot worse. If you're dropping 15 sacks off, your numbers should be a lot worse. But they had the same amount of interceptions. You were getting less pressure. You had crazy injuries, which everybody can acknowledge. The problem was I think defensive tackle is the main problem. It wasn't the cornerbacks. A linebacker definitely could use some upgrading. Jared Davis, he had 2 solid seasons. This is probably his worst season with the least amount of games played. Only 11 games played. So that's something to be a little bit worried about, right? His health. But overall, let me get back to my regular page here. Okay, I'm losing it now. Now we're losing pages. Okay, but overall, I think it's really just defensive tackle is the biggest need. I think it starts the front seven. The front seven is where I'm focusing, not secondary. So when I say I'm focused on front seven defensively, I am for a reason. We can get coverage linebackers. You can get linebackers that can be more sure tacklers. Whatever you want to do, you can add depth there. That's where I'm looking. I'm looking linebacker, defensive tackle, edge rushers. Not necessarily secondary. So I think the problem lies there. If you guys have any other thoughts, let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any other ideas of what I should research for this, let me know as well. Thank you, Prep, for watching. And if you want to see offense, I can do that. Also, go check out my gaming channel, DoseOfDion. Thank you, Prep, for watching, and I'm out.